Jack Lobby, Dennis Quaid, is a paleoclimatologist who is on an undertaking in Antarctica with two partners, straight to the point, J.O. Sanders, and Jason, run Mihok, boring for ice center examples on the Larsen Ice Rack for the NOAA. The ice rack out of nowhere severs from the remainder of the mainland, and Jack nearly tumbles to his demise. Jack presents his discoveries on an Earth-wide temperature boost at a unified countries gathering in New Delhi. Jack found that quite a while back, an Earth-wide temperature boost changed the world's environment into the Ice Age. Jack says that it could reoccur in perhaps 100 to a long time from now on the off chance that people don't quit dirtying the air. The greater part of the representatives, including the VP of the U.S., Kenneth Welsh, are unconvinced by Jack's hypothesis. At the gathering, Jack meets teacher Terry Rapson, Ian Holm, of the Headland Environment Exploration Centre in Scotland, who is monitoring the world's sea flows. Terry lets Jack know that the dissolving of the polar ice covers has emptied new water into the seas and weakened the salt level equilibrium, which has made the temperature of the sea flows drop 13 degrees. Two floats in the North Atlantic at the same time show a gigantic pittance temperature, and Rapson reasons that liquefying of the polar ice has started upsetting the North Atlantic current. He calls Jack, whose paleoclimatological weather conditions model holds reconstructional information of the environmental change that caused the primary ice age, to foresee what will occur. Jack accepted that the occasions wouldn't occur for 100 or 1,000 years, yet he, straightforward, Jason, and NASA's meteorologist Janet Tokata, Tamlin Tomita, fabricate an estimate model with his, Rapson's, and Tokata's information. All over Earth, the environment framework changes for absolutely awful. Tokyo is hit by softball-size hail, it starts to snow in New Delhi, and Los Angeles is obliterated by a gathering of enormous F5 twisters that hit all simultaneously. The U.S. President, Perry Lord, approves the FAA to suspend air traffic over the U.S. because of extreme disturbance. As 3 RAF helicopters fly to clear the English regal family from Balmoral Palace in Scotland, they enter the eye of an exceptionally gigantic typhoon-like superstorm that causes a temperature decrease of 150 degrees Fahrenheit that freezes their fuel lines and rotors, making them crash and immediately stick to death. In the meantime, Jack's child, Sam, Jake Gyllenhaal, is in New York City for a scholarly contest with his companions Brian and Laura, R.J. Smith and Emmy Rossum, where they likewise get to know an understudy named J.D. during the opposition. The weather conditions turns out to be greatly vicious with serious breezes and flooding downpours. Sam calls his dad, making a guarantee to be on the following train home. Tragically, the tempest deteriorates, compelling metros and Great Focal Station to close when they flood. Jack sees the president and gives him the terrible news that his gauge of years is currently down to days before the planet enters another ice age. Jack encourages the president to clear everyone in the southern states to Mexico, since emptying individuals in the northern states is past the point of no return. The VP says he's not entertained by Jack's alleged mockery and Jack leaves for New York to track down his child. As the tempest deteriorates in Manhattan, a tempest flood very nearly 40 feet, about a portion of the level of the Sculpture of Freedom, influences the island, causing significant flooding. Sam and his companions can look for shelter in the New York Public Library. As they advance toward the front entryways, Laura cuts her leg on a piece of rough metal joined to a taxi. She overlooks the injury and assists a lady and her kids with escaping a flooding taxi. The U.S. President's helicopter is trapped in the superstorm, killing everybody ready, leaving the U.S. VP in control. With a significant part of the number of inhabitants in the southern portion of the U.S. at the boundary with Mexico, the VP consents to excuse a lot of obligation owed by the Mexican government to permit individuals to cross the line to somewhere safe and secure. Inside the library, Sam educates everybody with respect to his dad's guidance to remain inside. Few tune in, and the little gathering that remains consumes books to keep warm and breaks into the library's candy machine for food. Laura is beset with blood harming when the cut she got turns septic, so Sam, Brian, and JD should look for penicillin in a Russian freight transport that floated inland, and are gone after got away from wolves from the New York Zoo. All of a sudden, the eye of the North American superstorm starts to disregard the city with its 150 degrees Fahrenheit moment freeze temperatures, and the whole New York City horizon starts to freeze strong, structures and air the same. The 3 revisitation of the library with medication, food, and supplies, coming to somewhere safe. During the profound freeze, Jack and Jason take cover in an unwanted Wendy's eatery. Jason had capitulated to the super cold and wind and fell. In distress, Jack dropped him into the eatery's kitchen through a vent and stayed until the tempest peered toward past. They continue their excursion, at long last showing up in New York City. They find the library covered in snow, however find Sam's gathering alive and are protected by U.S. Armed Force fighters flying UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters. In Mexico, The new president orders search and salvage groups to search for different survivors, having been given expectation by the endurance of Sam's gathering. A few additional gatherings are tracked down on top of Manhattan high-rises and are likewise saved. The film finishes up with two space explorers peering down at Earth from the Worldwide Space Station, showing a large portion of the northern side of the equator canvassed in ice, including each of the U.S. north of the southern states, and a significant decrease in contamination.